Hello and welcome to Juliet and Lucy's Quiet Leadership Revolution, the podcast for senior and aspiring leaders who want to make their voice heard and their impact felt through thoughtful, reflective, confident leadership. I'm Juliet Corbett. I'm an executive coach and strategist, and I work one-to-one with senior leaders, guiding them to find their strategic focus, empower their teams, and regain control over their time.
And I'm Lucy Gower. I'm a facilitator, trainer and coach, and I empower leaders to build their happy, confident and high-performing teams.
So Lucy, I'm really excited this time. We're going to be talking about the leadership blind spot, what you're missing and how to fix it. Lucy, I'm hijacking this episode. I hope that's okay with you. I really want to find out more about a system that you've been creating, which helps leaders to work out the things they might not have spotted that are holding them back. And then having identified what those areas are, looking into how leaders can then fix those areas or improve and elevate in those areas where they've noticed they've got a blind spot. So I'm going to be putting you on the spot, Lucy, this time. Does that sound okay with you?
Indeed. Sounds great. I'm excited.
Okay, let's play. Excellent. So tell me a little bit about what led you to create a system, a kind of a methodology for how leaders can spot what they're missing.
So for about 15 years now, I've been working in the space of helping leaders develop high-performing teams. And I kept seeing the same patterns again and again and again. And I thought perhaps there could be some sort of process or methodology that helps make sure that leaders and their teams have all the skills, mindsets and capabilities that they need to be high-performing. It's different for every single individual, but I kind of had this vision of a system that leaders can dip into and dip out of that is very practical, that helps them to move towards whatever progress looks like for them. And it's called the Lucidity Success System, which, full disclosure, was a working title and I couldn't come up with anything better. And now that's what it is. So there's
that's what it does, right? Lucidity Success System. Excellent. Exactly. Good. So tell us a little bit about the Lucidity Success System. What elements made it into your final list?
Well, it's an ever-evolving list as I continue to develop it. I don't think it's ever static or finished. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of work around what does AI mean for leaders, for example, but how it works is it starts with you as an individual. Who are you? What are your goals? What does success look like for you, and where do you want to get to? And then it takes a bit of a deeper look into who you are, what your values are, what's important to you, a bit of a personal SWOT analysis. And then from there, where we look at where you're at now and where you want to go, there's almost like an ecosystem of different tools and techniques that can help you. It's displayed as a Venn diagram. I love a Venn diagram, as you will well know. And each of the sections of the diagram has a different kind of core element that over the last 15 years or so, I feel have been really important that every leader has. So the elements are your ability to lead, so to lead and influence, your energy, which is about your resilience and energy, but also your ability to plan your time, to have time to think, to set boundaries, to say no. There's a piece around your mindset. My mindset is really key around your confidence, your resilience, your ability to learn and develop. Your network. I fully believe that networks are absolutely key. If you don't know something, someone in your network will. This is how you find your opportunities, how you solve problems. And then the ability to think. So that covers creative thinking and problem solving, critical thinking, strategic thinking, anything that is a methodology to help you to solve problems.
Fantastic. So what I'd love to do then, so let's have a little deep dive into some of these different elements as we go around the system. And as you're listening, what I'm going to invite you to do is, this is a kind of a methodology that has a lot of depth to it, but I reckon, Lucy, hopefully you're okay with this. Yeah. You can also use it a bit like a checklist.
Yes.
So as you're listening to this episode, maybe jotting down or thinking in your mind how am I doing on this particular area? Do I have a really strong sense of this area or this skill set, this knowledge of myself? In which case, fantastic. That's not an area you necessarily need to work on next. Or maybe we're talking about an area where you want to be going a little bit deeper into your self-awareness or practicing a skill or a capability going forwards.
Yeah.
And then that will maybe leave you at the end of the episode with a sense of, as you've listened to this, where are the areas that you want to explore and to go deeper in terms of your own ability to elevate your leadership. How does that sound,
Sounds
Lucy?
excellent.
Okay, so starting right in the middle then,
Mhm.
I love the fact that you've put where you are now and your goals really early
Yeah.
on in the process. I think it's really helpful for people to have a sense of who they are and what they're trying to get to.
Yeah.
What made you put that right in the middle? Why does it start there?
Well, I think as a strategist, you'll like this, Juliet. If you don't know where you're going, how can you possibly have a plan of how you're going to get there? So
Yeah.
being really clear about what success looks like, and that could be goal setting, could be for the next year, could be for the next 5 years, 10 years. Again, it's very individual. It's down to you as an individual, how long you want to set the time frame for achieving your goals. And then it's looking at, well, really like what your strengths and weaknesses are. What do you know now? Where are the gaps in order to help you to get to where you said that you wanted to get to? And that is skills and competencies, but it's also about your values and your beliefs
Mhm.
and your confidence and your personal brand and what other people do to support you. All of that sits with yourself, which is the starting point. Um, and I think, we're all different and we're all different at a different point in time.
Mm.
So, for me, a year ago, the things that I was interested in learning is different from now. So it's designed to be a flexible methodology that you can dip in and out of as and when you need it. It just takes that bit of work at the beginning to be really clear on what your goals are, where you're going. And I would normally work with a client to help them understand what that looks like. But you don't have to work with me
Yeah.
to use the success system. You can work on your own or with a colleague or with a coach or a mentor. Um,
Mhm.
it's flexible.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things you said that really resonate with me. So I think it's really helpful to start with that sense of
Mm,
doing a reality check with where you are now. And you talked about SWOT analysis, a check of where
yeah,
you want to go. But I think it's actually really important what you said there about it being fluid and agile and that you can come back to
yeah,
it. Because I think a lot of times people create step one, you do this, step two, you do this. And it feels so rigid that actually looping back to refine or change your goal feels
yeah,
like, oh, I failed this time. I need to go back. No, 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 no. That is what we do. We always refine and especially when it comes to goal setting, I think you can learn more about yourself and your awareness of yourself can deepen. And you can suddenly realize maybe you're looking at values, you're looking at beliefs, you suddenly realize, hang on a minute, that's someone else's
mm,
goal that I've accidentally given to
yeah,
myself. Actually, what I want is quite different. So I love the idea this has enough
yeah.
fluidity to
And it
it.
can be really easy to be setting goals that actually, when you look deeply, are not your goals, because all of your friends or all of your
Mm,
colleagues are heading for, I don't know, wanting to earn millions of pounds. That might not be what inspires or motivates you, and you need a bit of time
mm.
and space not to get caught up in living somebody else's dream. You've got to be able to identify your own purpose and live your own.
Yeah, definitely. So this is, I was going to use the word audit. Audit sounds like there's a right and wrong. So I don't like the word audit, but this is a kind of a check-in
Yeah,
stage, isn't it? To understanding yourself deeply enough that you can start to set the direction that's true to
yeah.
you, acknowledging that it's going to refine
Yeah, and
over
there's a
time.
balance in that of a bit of time going, who am I? What's important to me? Where am I going? And not navel gazing and spending and not taking action, because the point of the success
Yeah,
system is each small module within it is bite size. It's about practical things to get you moving in the right direction, and makes an assumption that you're time poor. So time spent thinking about where you're going and why and who you are and why that's important is key. That's your starting point. but we don't spend too long there because there's more to be learned from taking some action. And then you might need to come back and regroup. That's totally fine. You might start to do some of the
Yeah.
exercises and go, oh, actually, I'm not as good as I thought at this particular area, or I don't have the networks in place that I thought that I did have. And you move,
Yeah.
there's no linear do this, then do that. You move through it in a way that best supports you.
Yeah. Absolutely. So one of those blind spots, those leadership blind spots, can be things like I don't have a strong sense of my own values. So when those values get challenged and I feel quite uncomfortable about a decision, or I feel quite kind of all at sea, like I don't have an anchor
Yeah.
in what I'm doing in my career or my leadership roles, um, something like not having a clear sense of your
Yeah.
values is potentially the blind spot. And what you're missing and how to fix it, inevitably, the first step is identifying it,
Yes.
that that's something you're maybe not so clear on.
Yes, exactly. And that's why one of the sections that you may or may not choose to lean into in the myself section is around what's your purpose? Like what are you here for?
Mm.
Because that can be a real leveler
Yeah.
when it comes to making decisions.
Yeah. And I think as well, my personal experience is that some of these things stay very static.
Mhm.
I know that people often say the values is one of those things that stays quite static through your life. Others of these things can ebb and flow. So
Agree.
personally, my sense of purpose is completely shifted compared to for
Yeah.
early on in my career. So those things you need to come back
Yeah.
and look at these things again periodically. And like you said, whilst taking
Yeah.
action, not just getting stuck in the thinking process.
Yes, and when you start to really think deeply about who you are, what you do, what your strengths are, where you want to go, it can be really insightful and other things can emerge as you start to do that piece of thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so that's the center of your Venn diagram. That's the bit all about you. You've then got these five
Mm.
areas around the outside. Where should we start? Where do you want to kind of do a little bit of an explore
I'm going to start with
first?
connect. So I've got a
Mm.
really
Tell me why that's
I've got a
important.
really strong belief that networks, relationships are massively important in your whole life. But if we're focusing in on kind of working life, who you know and who knows the people that you know is where I believe there is huge scope for opportunities, for learning, for career progression. And so those networks are key. So work around who your networks are, a network mapping exercise of who you go to ask for help is in there. Um, People often tell me that they hate networking or they know it's important but find it really difficult. So there's real practical tips on how to network and not hate it, how to get the most out of your networks, how to give back and
Mm.
contribute to the networks that you're part of. So all of that is around connection, and that might be within your team, that might be within your leadership team, or that might be within your whole organization and outside of your organization. But there's a mix of why is this important and what's some practical skills that I can start on right away, and how will I know that I've made progress, which comes back to the goals that you would have
Mm.
set in the beginning.
Yeah. And as you say that, I think this evolves with the
Mm.
goals as well, right? So as your goals shift and change and your career evolves through time, the connections that you want to have are going to be different. So it might be that
Yes.
you've got a really busy, full network, but you might have not noticed that there's a whole area of your goals for which you have no one you can call on to ask for inside knowledge, to ask for help, to ask for advice, because your goals have evolved, but your network hasn't.
Exactly. And if you're never really focusing in on what those goals are, you won't know that your network could be improved to help you achieve them. And I know I had a friend that I worked with in a job when I was really junior, and I remember going out for a drink with them, and they said, well, my 5 year plan looks like this, and in 3 years I'm going to be doing this, and in 5 years I'm going to be working overseas. And I just sat there with my glass of wine going, whoa, that's never even occurred to me. And actually, I think that that conversation is one of the first times that I really started to think about what's my strategy. I'd just kind of turned up for work before that and gone home
Yeah,
again. So
yeah,
that's an example of networks helping you to think differently, but it's also an example of just spending a bit of time just reflecting on where you're at and where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, that doesn't, I'm not saying that that necessarily matters, but if you care about um, your leadership and making progress and being good at it, that doesn't happen if you're not putting any thought into what success looks like and where you
Yeah.
want to go.
Yeah. And where you want to go is not defined necessarily by job title or
No,
organization type. It's defined by what type of leader do you want to be in 3 years' time, in 5 years'
exactly.
time. And so it can look quite different for different
Yeah.
people. Tell us a little bit about the mindset part of this, because obviously this is something that we talk about quite frequently on the
Yeah.
podcast. So clearly it won't come as a surprise to regular listeners to know this is one of the key areas of
Yeah.
your Lucidity Success
I mean, I
System.
I think that everything starts with mindset, how you view and frame the world, and you have a choice. So you might not have a choice about what happens to you. You can't control what happens to you, but you do have a say in how you respond to that, and that is about mindset. So whether that's around confidence, what's my confident mindset? There's that piece of research which I poo-pooed for a long time, and then I found out was true about the gender divide in terms of women not going for jobs. If there's 10 things and they can do 8 of them, women don't go for the job because they can't do 2, but men go for the job because they can do 8. That confidence mindset is key, I believe. So having the confidence to go, well, I can't do that yet, but I'm still going to put my hat in the ring for the role is
Mhm.
kind of one small example of that. That links very much to growth mindset, this belief that if we work hard and we learn from feedback, that our intelligence and our um, ability, our performance improves. And
Mhm.
again, with mindset, you can learn about it, but you have to practice it in order to embed that learning. So it's very much focused on learning by doing. And for me, sort of energy and resilience falls into that mindset piece as well. But fundamentally, you can't control what happens to you, but your mindset can really help about how you respond to those situations. And that's the
Yeah.
difference between
Yeah.
making progress and not making progress for so many of the people that I work with. And I imagine you'd find
Yeah.
similar
Absolutely.
because we do talk about mindset probably in every episode.
Yeah. No, I pretty much. Yeah. No, I think it's really important. It's almost like the lens through which we experience the world is through our thinking process, our
Yeah.
thoughts. So the same external experience can be completely level one person. It just completely knocks them out entirely. That this is something that they're unable to process or to continue to work alongside. Whereas the same experience for someone else is something that is just, I've had a bit of a rough day. I'm going to get up tomorrow again and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And the difference is the way that your thoughts
Yes.
process that experience. And so we live through the experience of our thinking, not the experience that we're experiencing in the outside world. And so mindset is the lens that creates either some really helpful thinking or some really unhelpful
Yeah.
thinking. And so inevitably then that also determines what your behavior is to a certain
Absolutely.
extent, how you respond to
Yeah.
setbacks, for example.
Absolutely. And being cognizant of having the choice in terms of how you respond is key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Tell me a bit more about energy. This is the one that actually I probably learned the last of all of these on the list. Being able to control where I'm spending my energy and almost think about it as an energy budget as to where I
Yeah.
focus my energy is something that's more recently acquired skill on my part.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about why that is in your system, why it's so
So I
important.
think energy is about our own personal energy and how it ebbs and flows at different times today and how we are using it. So within the energy section, there is practical tips and tools around how to make time to think, about how to hold boundaries and to say no in order that you are preserving your energy for the tasks that are going to make the most impact. There's work around how you balance. Like, I don't believe in work-life balance. I think that it's too muddied now, that for many of us
Mhm.
it's not that we go to work 9 to 5 in order that we can have a nice weekend,
Mhm.
what we do for our roles and how we live our life are intrinsically linked. So, what does balance look like as a leader? And what are the things that you are doing outside of work in order to fuel you for the work that you're doing? So, we've talked about this several times in different episodes about what if slowing down helps you speed up, and in
Mhm.
not needing to do everything. It's about our energy, and that's not just our physical energy, but our headspace to think, to make good decisions. And all of these, it's a Venn diagram because they all interlink. If our resilience is low, it impacts everything. If our energy is low, we find it harder to make good decisions. Our confidence can take a dip. Our thinking isn't as good because we're tired. And so energy is a fundamental part and a foundational part of excellent leadership, and being able to notice and then know what to do for yourself in order to best manage your energy so that you can do your best job for others is really key. I battled with where energy sat. Is it within mindset? But it's so important it has its own section.
Yeah. 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 Don't put it in with mindset because it feels really
Yeah,
separate. And I think having gone through the process where I've discovered it for myself almost, it feels like it has a separate ebb and flow to my mindset and my
yeah,
thinking, which deserves being
yeah,
separated in the way that I
yeah,
think about it. Different people might experience it in a
yeah,
different way, but it feels like there's that sense of what's the most important thing for me to be focusing my
yeah,
energy on is a different question to where should I be focusing my time.
yes,
And we've got other episodes
yeah,
that talk about
yes,
time management and so on that explain why these are connected, but also this is different from just diary
yes,
management. It's
yeah,
much more
yeah,
individual than that.
absolutely.
Okay.
And all the areas interlink, they don't sit separately at all.
Yes. Yeah. Tell me a bit about lead as you've got here on the next section.
So, lead is specifically around how you lead others, and it focuses in on leading through change. Change is constant. We are always going to be leading some sort of change, whether that is change that is being done to us, the outside world. We are experiencing huge amounts of flux and change right now, or whether that is changing systems and processes within an organization. You're always going to be leading change. So we focus in there on tips and tools to do that, really looking at the neuroscience of change, what's happening in our brains when change happens. I talk a lot about uncertainty and how that can have a threat response, and how we try and balance that out in order to lead and bring people with us, and how we manage ourselves when we are going through change, which links back to energy. How do we keep resilient when we're leading others through something that's different? Within lead, there's also information and practical tips around influencing up, down, and across, helping people to get buy-in for the change that's happening, focusing on storytelling as a communication tactic to help you do that. And there's a whole part on what I've called human-centered leadership. That's about bringing your whole self to work and encouraging others to do the same, to essentially create a team where you've got psychological safety.
Yeah, fantastic. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear back from people who are
Mm.
listening, but when it comes to that leadership blind spot, my suspicion is that the general areas that you've just mentioned, if you're not feeling that one of those is covered, it's probably not a blind spot. You've probably already
Yes.
uncovered it because things have happened in your leadership career, your leadership journey, which have helped you uncover that maybe there's some more work that you could be doing around influencing up or storytelling, whatever it
Mm.
might be. But I think I'm possibly making more assumptions than might have been true of me early career. So it might be as you're listening that some of those weren't familiar to you and you do want to explore more.
And
Um,
something
tell us a
around
little bit about.
we don't know what we don't know, and I think
No,
that can
exactly.
apply here, which is why having a network and setting goals can be helpful in uncovering some of those insights about blind
Yeah.
spots. That's the whole point, isn't it? We don't see them. We don't know until we start to unpick some of the things about us and our leadership.
Yeah. Which is one of the ways in which this system is really helpful because there's a lot in here so that you can spot where you're drawn
Mm,
to, but without having the necessity to go through a set structural a sequence
yeah,
of them. And so you can be drawn to different areas without feeling that you need to get everything mastered simultaneously, which obviously would be pretty overwhelming.
exactly.
Tell us a little bit about this last section, think.
So think has got some practical applications for creative thinking and problem solving, for critical thinking specifically, and for strategic thinking. There's a mix of why it's important and how you do it, both for you as an individual and how you encourage your team to do it. And again, it crosses over with energy. So, for example, with creative thinking, the evidence shows that we don't do our creative thinking when we're in this busy mindset. We do our best creative thinking when our energy is high and when we're perhaps balanced and relaxing, where our brain has those breakthrough moments in the quiet spots. So the whole system feeds in and out of each other. And exactly as you said, Juliet, it's for you as an individual to figure out the bits that are going to be most helpful for you with mine or somebody else's help. And it's about small steps to move forward.
So tell me a bit more about think, the last one.
So think outlines, creative thinking and problem solving, critical thinking and strategic thinking. And there's a mix of practical tips, tools, and applications for both helping your own thinking and for that of your team. And again, it interlinks with other areas. So, for example, it's proven for creative thinking that doesn't come when we are stressed out and really busy. Our creative thinking comes when we are relaxed and in those quite literal quiet moments in our brain. That's where we get different neural connections, which are often the sparks of ideas and breakthroughs.
Fantastic. So we've got a lot of interconnected areas, but at the same time, as you've been listening, there
Mm.
might be areas that you've thought, yep, I give myself a 10 out of 10 on that, all over it, no problems there. And there might have been areas where you thought, oh, I hadn't thought about that before, or I haven't checked in on that recently.
Mm.
Maybe there's an area you'd like to, or blind spot, potentially, if we're using the terminology that we had in the title there, that you might have identified that you want to work on. So, Lucy, you mentioned that a lot of this is bite-sized, it's really practical, learning through doing. How can people access some of the depth of content that you've got around this to help people make the moves forward to elevate their leadership?
So you can work one-to-one with me, or you get access to the whole of the Lucidity Success System and a leadership training library if you join my membership community, which is called the Lucidity Network. So the network is for leaders and aspiring leaders who want to be more deliberate about making great progress. It's a mix of community, not surprisingly, connect is so important in my view about making great progress, live training, productivity sessions, and group coaching sessions to help you make good progress. I'll share the link for joining the Lucidity Network within the show notes.
Fantastic. Now, I have seen the inside of the Lucidity Network. It is a gem, an absolute
Oh,
gem,
bless you.
both because of the content, which is what we're talking about here, but actually it's also the people, the members that you've got within that network and the way that they are connecting to each other and connected and helping each other is something that I haven't actually seen in any of the other memberships that I'm a member of. So it's really, really comes highly recommended.
Thank you.
Lucy, you can edit this bit out. You can ask us to edit this bit out if you want to. But how does it feel to be sharing this more openly with the world? Because I know the impact that you have and the work that you do in this network is exemplary. It's amazing. And I also know that sometimes you hesitate to shout this from the rooftops. How does it feel?
Oh, you're so right, Julia. So I feel it feels odd talking about it. We don't need to edit this out. It feels like, I suppose it comes, probably you can unpick this, Juliet, for me. It comes back to kind of the values of not showing off and just kind of working hard and getting on with
Mhm.
things. I feel immensely proud of the Lucidity Network membership and the Lucidity Success System, because it's 15 years of work that I've kind of codified and pulled together in one place. I'm also really proud of the network and the willingness of people within it to really help each other. And I'm proud of the progress that so many of people in the network who have set goals and taken advantage of everything that's on offer in the network and where they've got to, and the things that they've done. I also think within the network that I don't know another membership that has so much live opportunities, real opportunities for people to network. I'm there every week in it, and I'm not a member of lots and lots of different networks like this, and I'm surprised that there's not more live opportunities in some other networks, because that's what it's all about, is connecting with other human beings.
Mm.
That's kind of like the fundamental point of it. Everything is about networks and
Yeah, which I
relationships.
think is why it works so well, because that essence and that belief that you bring to it kind of disseminates through the rest of the community, the rest of the membership, and it gives it that energy, that buzz, that vibe. I think you have every right to be very proud of what you've achieved. And I think that the fact that it started with a crowdfunder shows that your people that know you also believed that this is something really, really special. And that is exactly what you've created. I put you on the spot a little bit there. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hopefully it wasn't too awkward. So we will be putting the link for the Lucidity Network into the episode notes. I can see Lucy, she's blushing just
I
while I'm
am.
talking here. Into the episode notes. Go and have a look. It is a great opportunity to get not only access to Lucy and her genius, but also all of the other members of that network who are really, really there to be improving themselves as leaders and helping each other along the way as well. Lucy, I think we're also putting the little diagram for the Lucidity Success System as a
Mhm.
as a link from the episode notes. So if you want to see the visual, the Venn diagram that we've been talking about, you can see that as well from there.
Fab.
Wonderful. I think we're going to sign off here. Thank you for spending this time with us. I'm Juliet Corbett, an executive coach and strategist working one-to-one with senior leaders.
And I'm Lucy Gower, a facilitator, trainer, and coach, founder of the Lucidity Network, and I help leaders develop high-performing teams. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with colleagues and help to leverage the impact of the quiet leadership revolution.